living like a Christian. Why? Because the whole world tells me to do everything the Bible tells me not to do. And I'm struggling. And we talked, and we talked, and we prayed, and it was a wonderful morning. And 4 days later, she was dead. The entire family was able to take rest in the fact that we had had that talk. Because there was a time where people were like, I don't know where Isabel's faith is because she's having trouble with her choices. So we need to reconnect the young adults and the children in the room to the love of the Lord that we have as parents. Practice number 1, make sure you love the Lord and make sure you pass on your love of the Lord to the kids regularly because you do life with them. But it gets a little bit more organized than that. In a complex and anxious age, so with lots of information being thrown at young adults, we need to reimagine learning in order to promote a robust Christian education. Now, for those of us who homeschool, we would probably want to say to you the very best version of this is homeschooling, because it combines point 1 with point 2, which is parents are supposed to be heavily involved, and then point 2, we need to actually think about education. Let's stay on the education proper point for a minute, okay? Ephesians 6:4 says, "Fathers, do not exasperate your children. Instead, bring them up in the training and instruction of the Lord." Matthew 7:24 says, "Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and puts them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock." Now, the reason why we need to have a specific attitude towards education is this: because we need to teach about the specific applications of our Christian worldview to real-life situations, to real-life personal disciplines, and to societal production. Let me try to say that clearer with a quote from John Jefferson Davis. Generalized appeals to justice be divorced from the specifics of law. We can't speak about justice in the abstract. Rather, there must be specific commands and stipulations and consequences in place for each citizen to give justice, the word justice, real meaning. The same works for every other issue that requires wisdom. Just as general appeals to justice become meaningless when the specifics of common law are removed, appeals to wisdom become meaningless without the specifics of moral ideas and observable truth. Specific morals and truth make specific acts of wisdom possible. In other words, we can't speak about wisdom in the abstract. For the word wisdom to have meaning, we must have specific applications involving moral thought and truthful action. The moral specifics and truthful actions make it possible to fulfill the requirements of a specific act of wisdom. What that means is this: you can't say, "I'm a good fan," if you don't know what the word good means. And if you don't know what the word good means in a specific situation. I'll give you an example of this. So we have this. Are we recording this, by the way? Okay. Is it going public? Do we have an opportunity to edit it? In my life as a pastor, sometime in the past 20 years, there was a new Catholic family that joined my church and grew up in Catholicism, and now being discipled in our church, and we're trying to figure out how to bring them along and undo some of the past teaching, but very sincere and loving the Lord. And every time I warn people not to take communion without understanding the exact nature of what the Lord's table means, they're up there, they're confessing sin. It's great. But they're over at our house, and they're telling the story about how they got married. And she said, yeah, we met, and this is what happened, this is what happened. And we got married by this really great Catholic priest. I said, oh, yeah? And he was brilliant. I said, okay, why was he brilliant? She said, do you want to know what he said to us? You want to know what the one question he asked us? I said, what? He said, how old are you? I go, okay. And I said, I was 27. And my husband said he was 27. He said, good, I'll marry you. See, he was so smart because you don't get married young. And I'm like, literally, my 15-year-old daughter, Mayla, remember the one who wants to be the firstborn? She's sitting there and she's just like, wonder how Dad's going to handle this one. See, they had no idea. Like, what does God require for marriage? So there's an arbitrary rule that's virtually me. Not really terrible 27-year-olds. Wonderful, godly Christian young men or women who stay pure but get married very young, maybe 19, 20, 21. They're not stupid enough to try to wait till they're 27. Like intentionally, like, right? The Lord works it out. But we got a whole, so an entire, marriage, wisdom to get married is meaningless to these people because it was a completely false rule. Specifics are important. But now let's connect this to the idea of education. It takes time to teach the specifics. It's very simple. It takes time to teach the specifics. If you ship off your kids to a public school system that teaches the opposite of everything you would teach them, if you then go and give them to a coach that worships sports and you're expecting that coach to give them character training, if you then bring them into your house and say, let's spend the rest of our time on media and social media, you are not taking the time to give them the specifics that will actually enable them to live wisdom in the world. That is why education is key. And the Marxists know that it's key. They know they need the time to indoctrinate. The church ought to have a strong vision for education. So I know you guys have a Christian school here, and that is a wonderful thing. And it is a wonderful thing for Christians who feel called to homeschool, and for Christian parents who want to partner with the church to do a Christian school. It's wonderful, but it is still, point one, parents passing on their passion of the Lord to the kids in the real world and taking time to do that and within a comprehensive plan for teaching them all about creation, to teaching them all about engineering and science and design and math in the context of God as the creator. I don't know if I had anything else to say on that, but I'll move on. Number 3, when isolation and mistrust are the norms, the church needs to encourage informal, intergenerational mentorship and apprenticeship. When isolation and mistrust are the norms, we need to encourage informal, intergenerational mentorship and apprenticeship. Some scriptures that support this: Philippians 3:17, join with others in following my example. Brothers, take note of those who live according to the pattern that we gave. Psalm 145, 3-7, great is the Lord and most worthy of praise. His greatness no one can fathom. Generation will commend your works to another. They will tell of your mighty acts. They will speak of the glorious splendor of your majesty, and I will meditate on your wonderful works. They will tell of the power of your awesome works, and I will proclaim your great deeds. They will celebrate your abundant goodness and joyfully sing of your righteousness. Let me read for you from Archibald Alexander. It is a matter of serious regret that young people are commonly so little disposed to listen to the advice of the aged. But it is greatly to be desired that the lessons of wisdom taught by the experience of one set of men should be made available for the instruction of those who come after them. We have therefore determined to address a few short hints of advice to the rising generation the from they actually findings. They published a paper. They asked them to respond to like we're bleeding out and we're dying. So I responded by writing my doctoral major project to answer the question, why is it that young adults are leaving the faith, and what can we do about it? Rick Heemstra is one of the lead researchers on that project, and this is something that, as he continues to study alongside of me, these are some of the things that he found out. Home church mentors, which, by the way, home church, not like home church, but like all y'all here who have said, and Christ is King is my home church. So mentors in the church of your upbringing, right? Home church mentors are one of the most significant factors correlated to young adults connecting with and continuing on in Christian communities after high school. The presence of a mentoring relationship is a sign that a young adult is well integrated into their home church community. Let me try to paint it in a metaphor, and you can read the text, or you don't have to read the text, but the picture is of a symphony. So learning to live for God is like learning to play a musical instrument. Few people can play the piano on the first try and make a beautiful sound. The violin is even worse. Have you ever heard new violinists try to learn how to play the violin? It's painful. I was one. Over months of practice, we learn to play beautiful music. Worship takes the same time and practice to unfold the beauty of God's love in our lives. We do church on Sunday mornings, much like we go to music lessons. With God as our music teacher, we learn the rudiments of our faith, and we must have an opportunity to practice what we've learned throughout the week. And that is in the context of an informal mentoring relationship where parents are working very specifically with individuals who are pouring into their kids' lives to then go and bring them practical advice. Remember I told you the story about the carpenter? I'm not really great at carpentry, so if I want my young boys to, well, not young anymore, if I want my boys to learn carpentry, they go work for a framer or they go work for a carpenter. Here, I want to elaborate this within the context of the modern youth ministry, though. So Scott Brown, who is the leader of an organization called Family Integrated Ministries or Family Integrated Churches, he says this: parental stories of full marriages are key for young adults to have their worldview shaped. Applications of reading at work by older Christians is something that's incredibly helpful for young adults. Stories of ethical and moral conflict and success help young adults navigate the world. Intergenerational preaching is meaningful for all. So you can see a lot when kids are sitting with when young adults are sitting with their parents. You can see a lot when you're preaching to them. You can see how the kids respond when you preach to the dads or the moms. You can see how dads or moms respond when the kids are sitting near them. And then intergenerational prayer is meaning for all. Having the kids pray with the adults is something, as these family integrated churches have studied, shows, and of course we have this in Scripture. We're supposed to have faith like children. Well, how do you hear faith expressed? One of those great ways is through church. Young children pray, encourage to pray. We establish times where adults and children are together praying. You would be shocked at how amazing it is. And every once in a while, you got to take that child over and just say, that was heresy. So let's just rethink about what we're about. You know, 15 asked, the Lord to provide. Can you slow down just a smidge? Not too much, but it reveals a lot. And so the reason why this is important to think intergenerationally and informally, and you need to think about this for your youth ministry, is because our tendency is to segregate the age groups. We're adults and we get annoyed with children, so they for all the people that have to take care of them, they have to put up with the annoying children. We tend to say to young adults, you don't like your parents, so let's get you someone with skinny jeans and can play the guitar. We say all these different things as we organize. So when you think about informal, it's but as pastoral leadership and as mission pastors, the culture you are creating is young adults and real time space. Informal, intergenerational mentorship. Just tell you a quick story about that in my life. One of the most influential men in my life as a mentor was a local beef truck driver. Like, he worked at the processing plant, and he just delivered beef all around North America. And in fact, the only time I have ever gone to New York City was in a beef truck, delivering beef to like the Bronx, which was terrifying at the time, and like downtown in front of the trade centers while they were standing. And there was just a moment in our life where that man sat down and he said, you have a great father, you have a great mother, you have a great church, and you know all of the things that the Bible says. But you're a bleep. Like, he used a pretty strong word. Said, you are just embarrassing us all. Get your act together. I don't know what you do with that as a young adult. Like, I changed. So in membership, because you can't always have the when it's planned and programmed and specifically programmed to segregate the ages. Okay, I'm supposed to be done in like 5 minutes, right? Am I good to go? Okay, we have just we have 2 more practices. Number 4, curb entitlement and self-centered tendencies by encouraging them to engage in countercultural behavior. What that means is, we know the world is trying to point them in a certain direction, right? Dr. Boot talked about structure and direction. The whole world wants them to go in a certain direction. And on a regular basis, if we call our young adults to do things like actually behave counterculturally, they will learn to go against that direction and in the direction of Christ. And you've got to walk with them and go through that with them. So when we moved to Kentucky, it was a fairly high level of stress time in our life. We were coming out of the COVID situation. I still faced all of my charges in Canada. We weren't really fleeing Canada as we were more wanting to invest in the United States and warn the United States. But for 3 years, I had some charges weighing over my head. By the way, so did Pastor Nate Wright, who's with us. Gabriel, my second born, really didn't want to move to the U.S. But I was able to say to him, hey, you've never played competitive hockey. I will let you play competitive hockey for 2 years. You and I'll get to spend time driving. You'll get to skate a lot. So we moved to Kentucky, and we find randomly that hockey there's a little hub in Lexington that's fairly passionate about hockey. I make a phone call and tell him I'm Canadian, and what does that mean? He's on the team without tryouts. Like, it was so bad. The coach was so bad. I'm like, dude, you need to see my boy skate. Like, can you? No, it's good. Like, just have him. No, he should try out. So he did go and skate, and he did perform, and it was great. But now we have a countercultural moment. Half of his games are on Sunday. Man, I got to tell you, as a dad, that was really hard to be a pastor and a father and to say, I know there's going to be consequences on the team, but you're not skating on Sunday, or you are rarely skating on Sunday, meaning we happen to have church in the afternoon in our church building right now. The odd time, maybe once or twice a year,